Hello again. In this video I'm going to show how to throw a punch correctly and some of the things not to do. So one of the things that I see that is very, very common is most people will stand in a boxer's, what I call a boxer's type guard, where you're up like this and you've got both hands up high. You know, some people really exaggerate, other people have their hands up like this, whatnot, and they're fighting in a way that if you're wearing thick padded gloves and if you don't have to worry about any leg attacks or anything coming down low, then it makes sense to have your hands up like this because nothing is going to be coming below the waist, right? In a real world fight, of course, a guarding block stance, something like what you see in traditional martial arts, is much more sensible and much more practical when you stand and you've got a hand down low here, because you've got to have something to protect the groin area and down here against low attacks. You can't just assume that everything is going up here for your head and that you're going to be in like this or having some kind of elevated guard that leaves you completely exposed. So that's one thing. So first and foremost, even though having your hands up like this seems to make sense, it's actually a really difficult place to throw a proper punch from. So when you have your hands up like this, elevated, what ends up happening is people have a tendency to top their punches and people have a tendency to back fist their punches. So what do I mean by that? Well, topping your punches, I'm going to exaggerate the motion, but topping your punches is when you start doing stuff like this. So when you start punching here and your arm is basically doing this. So you're no longer striking with the knuckles when you punch. What ends up happening is you're hitting with the wrist and the underside of your fist. This is topping your punches. So when you're up like this and you're in a boxer's guard, you always have to look, especially if you're a taller fighter, you always have to lower your hand down to get it to the target. So let's assume that you're fighting somebody that's the same height as you, just to keep it simple. If you're fighting somebody your own height, right, you still have to tilt and drop that hand down to get it to the target, right? Face level to face level, when you're there, you're still having to lower the hand down this way. And so there's always that chance, especially if somebody comes in on you when you start your punch, there's always that chance that you're going to catch it off the wrist or the underside of the fist as you're punching, because you haven't got your fist on target. You haven't got it lined up correctly yet. So that's one problem, topping the punches. Another thing that I see a lot is back fisting. So when you're here and your hand is already twisted in like this and you're in some type of a guard this way, back fisting is when you're doing this when you punch. So you want your punch to come out straight to the target, but what ends up happening is it's coming out backwards like this and it's drifting out. So you see people do this a lot when they punch. They punch like this. This is very, very common when people punch. And if you do something like this when you punch, you're leading with the weak side of the fist. This is going to be the part of the fist that strikes the target, especially if you hit early. This is the part that's going to hit the target and you're going to break your hand because you haven't got the strong side of your fist lined up to the target until the very, very end. And you're really not hitting with it, you're hitting with the weak side of the fist. So you see this commonly where people punch like this. Probably doesn't show up very well from a side view, but this is kind of what it looks like. It looks like they're throwing a good punch, but they're not. They're leading with the weak side of the hand, and when they do this, this is going to be the part that contacts the target. and that's going to result in a broken hand. So again, you can get away with it if you're wearing thick padded boxing gloves and if you have taped wrists. You can get away with all sorts of bad punches. When you're fighting on the street, you can't. And that reality will sink in very quickly to people that don't know how to punch. So when you start doing stuff like this back fisting, this is going to lead to a broken hand. So this is why I say, this is not a good place to start punches from. You want to start punches from the armpit down here. This is where you want to start your punch from. And when you throw, you want it to come out this way, like this. You want it to come out leading with the first two knuckles and coming in a straight line to the target. This is how you want to punch. So if you start from way up here, like this, you're going to have to drop your fist down to try to get it to the target. And it means you're always going to be topping your punches, or there's certainly a much greater likelihood that you're going to top your punches, or also if your fists are already twisted in this way, that you're going to back fist to try and get to the target. Your punch is going to drift outward, and you're going to lead with the weak side of the fist. If you punch from the armpit, so from down here and coming out, this way, the strong side of the fist is coming to the target at all times. This is what you want, right? You want to be punching from here, right? From the armpit out, not punching from up here, from your temple, like this. Again, boxers do this because they need to protect themselves at all times, and they're using the padded gloves for protection. Well, if you're on the street and you're standing bare-fisted like this, you're wide open up the middle, so somebody is going to punch you, they're coming right through that guard. Even if you stand like this and try to tighten it in, this is wide open here. People don't have any trouble getting through that with a punch. And also, if somebody comes around and punches you with a hook, they're not going to have any difficulty hitting you, going right through your fist and hitting you with your own hand into the face and going right through that. So you can absorb punches with gloves because it's kind of like a pillow. You can't really absorb punches with your fists. If somebody hits you here with force, it's just going to drive your fist right back into your own face. And you're going to feel the full brunt of that punch, except it's going to be punch into your fist and your fist into your face when you get hit. So this idea of just standing here like this and having both of your hands in like here, right? It's not going to stop the impact of a punch, right? It's better than being completely wide open, but it's not going to absorb the impact of a punch that's coming in here. You're still going to take the full force of that impact, right? It's going to transfer through. So that's why you need to avoid punches, first and foremost, instead of standing there and thinking that you're going to just absorb them on the hands. And second of all, when you go to punch, you've got to have your punches coming from the armpit and out, not up high like this, where you have to come down at your opponent and you start topping and back fisting your punches. They've got to start from down lower. If you start from a proper martial arts guarding stance, which is more like this, now you're actually in the proper position to throw punches, right? Now it's going to come out and you're going to be in the correct spot, right? This is more of a traditional guard in a martial art, right? Traditional martial arts. And you can see from here you're in the right position to throw those punches, right? They're coming in a straight line. They're coming from the right spot where you can generate maximum power. So anyway, I'll keep this video from getting too long. So till next time, thanks for watching.